So we are here to answer literally anything that you have. I mean, we're just very thankful that you're here. So if you do have any questions about anything at all, that's what we're using this segment for. Okay. Or if there are no questions, you can just come up and take a picture in one of these chairs too.
Will the Agent Force managed package that you talked about earlier, will that be a paid add-on or will that be events?
Yeah, so the question is, will the Agent Force package be a paid add-on? It will. We have been trying to work with the ISV team to see if we can resell Agent Force to make this a heck of a lot easier to just buy from one source. Doesn't exist. Believe me, we've tried. I've talked to Brian Landsman. He's like the head of ISV. They just don't have it out yet. They're trying to. I think Salesforce is trying to internally figure out how to even sell Agent Force at scale. But for now, in order to actually use Agent Force, you have to buy conversations from your AE. The list price is $2 a conversation. But I think that you can buy them a la carte. Don't quote me on this, but I would say you should just buy a bucket of them. Buy 1,000 or something. And then our extension package will have a price. We have no idea how to price that exactly yet. Odds are maybe we'll make it some percentage of registration or user or something. But I know that the way that Salesforce is doing the pricing for Agent Force is they have the internal thing. So that would be your planners. And I think they might be doing unlimited amount of conversations. You can do that for a specific user. And then they have the stuff that's for doing support or for doing their AI SDR thing. That would be per conversation. I believe that that's what they're looking at with their $2 per conversation thing. But what we're trying to do with working with them is to make sure that it's easy for our customers to be able to buy conversations, and then we have our Agent Force pricing. If it gets to the point where we can resell conversations, then we could just bundle it in one shot to make it easier, but it's not even available for us to do yet.
Cool. All right, Chris, there was a message that came in on the app beforehand, and I think you and Ashley might be keenly suited to answer this question. And it's, what are some of the attributes you see for the most successful implementations of Blackthorn?
You want to take that one?
Is my voice working?
It's good enough.
It's good enough. Yeah, well, and I think it's a great question, and I think from listening to all of our speakers and our presenters today, you find those internal stakeholders, those advocates that are really understanding the entire strategy. And you hold on to them tight. They are the best people for change management. So when you're implementing Blackthorn or Salesforce plus Blackthorn plus many other apps, they're really that rock that makes sure that the team keeps progressing. Onboarding as well, I'm a little biased, but we are an extension of your team. And so use us to help during the discovery process or how to solution and just get a bunch of people in a room talking about how to best solution for your needs, I think is some of the attributes to a successful implementation.
Yeah, to echo that, I previously founded a services company, and before that I worked at a bunch of Salesforce companies, and the number one thing I've seen to make any project go successful, this is not limited to Blackthorn, you need one owner that's really strong, as Ashley said, but it has to be one person. They can be technical, they can be non-technical, it doesn't really matter. But somebody needs to be driving that is making the thing happen. I've seen that to be the number one make or break thing. So because our app is a bit more technical than, say, Eventbrite, it helps a lot if you have an internal person that happens to know some more of the tech stuff. This is often very easily paired with an SI that's going to be helping you out with a lot of the tech. They might do a lot of the heavier lifting initially. But that's some big ones. I have a whole list of questions I can rattle off here too.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So I went through all the texts that have come in. There was a question of, do you need Education Cloud to use Blackthorn AI, which I think is referring to Agentforce. The answer is no. You don't need to have that. Our Blackthorn messaging app, will it be, I don't actually remember what the question was, but the answer is, it would be part of the events installer from our Candy Shop, if any of you have ever used that.
And I want to add to that with messaging is that we also redid our onboarding and implementation process for messaging. So everybody, I think, already received the post-event survey, and we have a link to a resource page. That resource page breaks down all of the SMS use cases and then how you can get in contact with our CS team. And within a week, we can get you onboarded so that you can start having SMS communications for your events as well. So.
Yeah, the underlying tech is Twilio. They introduced this thing called A2P. This is not a Twilio-specific thing. It's some kind of U.S. legislation about sending text messages. It takes a few days to get through to validate that like you're not going to spam the universe. So we'll help you get through this A2P thing, and then that's when messaging comes into play. In my opinion, messaging is a feature of events. This is like something that every single events organization should be using, unless you have some big reason why you can't. Like, I don't think you're really going to be text messaging minors or something, but if it's like a normal person who's like a student or alumni, maybe, then I think it's really like a feature that everybody should be using.
And just one thing to add too, and I think Chris Kearney hit on this as well, is that you all may have solutions already in place for SMS. And so think of us as the piece that with the smart scheduler, with the global scheduler, things that are directly connected to your events and attendees is where we can be the most useful in addition to what you're already currently using. So you don't have to build that connection between your current SMS tool with Blackthorn Events. You can just use us and the other solution.
Somebody asked if we're going to add NFC into the ability to scan someone into an event or a session instead of only a QR. So excuse me, but I don't really know much about Androids. I assume they have this too. But iPhones, they have like the tap to pay thing, which our mobile payments app, which is not really for this scope of what we're going into today, but we have tap to pay for iPhone and Android. It's the same tech that we would be embedding into our organizer check-in app to be able to do tap to check-in. So to do NFC scanning, it came up today. It's something that we're looking into. If you are interested in this, please email me and let me know. It's just chris@blackthorn.io. Another question was about...
Let's pause on that for 1 second, because I think this came up. We were talking to Tennessee and the student services groups. They basically said all of our students now have their ID card on their phone, and they tap all over campus. So what they were trying to understand is, how do we incorporate that experience they're super comfortable with into what we're doing in Blackthorn to capture that full picture? Because if they could say, hey, Chris went to this event, and then he went to the Union, and he bought these things, and that is a really rich profile. And we can really start to understand that Chris goes to Panda Express every Tuesday between classes. You know, maybe we invite him to this event. I don't know how we're going to make a connection there, but that's where I think they had the vision, and they painted that picture for me last night, and I said, yeah, that's it. Like, I get it. So I think all of us are in this world now where the ID card now lives on the phone. So how do we then connect the dots with events as well?
I did actually have a fair amount of Panda Express during college.
Me too. Must be a Chris thing.
Yeah, I think so. Another question was around org-wide defaults and sharing settings. This is a trap of a question. In Salesforce, there are a lot of ways to do a lot of things. I would say to try to find someone with the biggest deployment, and ask them what they did. I know Arizona is managing like 400 event users, so I imagine that you're doing something pretty nifty. But that one's not an easy question to answer. Someone asked about what use cases are on our horizon that are a little further. So kiosk mode is a big one, because sometimes people want to pair that up with badge printing. That's not something we're doing in the exact same way, but we've had some requests where sometimes you'll have like 50 people checking people in for a line of 5,000 in front of you. Kiosk mode should help with some of that. Our builder is a big one. A builder has like a year of roadmap with a dedicated team to it. Again, with the goal of like people not needing documentation to use the app. Badge printing is another big one, and the attendee mobile app. So all things that you've heard, but these things along with the other enhancements, this is all going to take us like at least a year. Do we support virtual events? Yes. Zoom meetings is probably the biggest one that we have, but we also have Zoom webinar, GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, and WebEx meetings. Talk to the advisors to learn more, I'm told. Event groups. Now that we have one event to multiple groups, can we support more than one event category? Maybe. Sounds like a pretty easy data modeling exercise. We could have another field that's a multi-select. Any admins in a room that love multi-selects? Yay! No one.
No,
but we could.
No.
So we're open to modeling ideas. Just let us know what it is that you're thinking. Someone asked, can we they didn't exactly ask it exactly like this, but can we morph forms for non-events? Feel free to test. But the app is really designed to work with attendees. So unless you don't feel like fiddling with attendees, then I would say look at like form assembly or something. And another one was how to encourage adoption. Where you want to field that one? That was a big one about how to best like do change management and get people like going on Blackthorn.
Well, yeah, and I think my answer from the last question is the same for this question as well, is that it's those internal advocates. The other thing I think to mention is bringing in the end users during the implementation, or at least subject matter experts earlier into the implementation. I think that's something I didn't call out before. That is something notable that has made a more successful implementation. I'm noticing more that during the onboardings, we're getting more training teams, and they're getting brought in earlier to then learn the product, to then have a personalized training program for the end users. So I think all of those, that and open mind, open to knowing that things are going to be different, which just goes back to change management.
To echo that, I've actually seen two things go very, very wrong. When you hear a group of people say the business wants this, that's always like a dangerous term that I've heard, because that always means that the go live will be a disaster. So if there's any terminology in your org that's like the business needs this, please incorporate your end users with them, because that could be a mess.
I've seen some things that I think carrot and stick. So recently I heard a scenario. I was visiting a school, and I won't call them out here, but they said, hey, the new approach is you run an event, you have 7 days to get your data into Advancement CRM. Otherwise, there's hell to pay. So that's one where I think that was a pretty strong signal to, you don't have a choice. This is the new world order. And so that was the stick approach. I've seen other ones where, hey, let me show you what the end result is. And I think that was one that was interesting, because there was friction with some users on, oh, Blackthorn seems hard, we're coming from these other systems, but they said, let me show you some reports and what's possible. And I think that started to open people's eyes, because their reporting process and being able to prove the ROI of their events was a huge challenge. So showing the report that said, hey, with a couple of clicks, you can now see everything you would ever want to see and more inside of Salesforce. And that started to win hearts and minds. So I think some carrot, some stick, maybe a combination of both can work.
Well, you bring up a good point. I know every single account in this room and where you're at in the journey. And so if you feel like, I just don't know, we haven't connected the dots, I'm not seeing the value, it feels hard. There isn't a use case in this room that I thought, nope, doesn't fit us, and maybe you should look elsewhere. So with that being said, make sure you talk with your customer success manager. We've revamped our onboarding, so that way we can kind of hit that. Let's build it together first so you see the value, and then we build the foundation of learning and content to then have it move into an enablement phase to make sure that you're able to keep the adoption up and increase the adoption as we have new releases. So just make sure and talk to me. I sound better when we're on a one-on-one level, but seriously, we can make it work. We just need to get the right people in the room to make it happen.
And if you're working with a SI, with a system integrator, always both be on the calls. Don't have only yourselves with us. Don't have only the SI with us. Every time I've seen either of those scenarios, it fails. Like you both have to be on the calls with us. I mean, okay, maybe it's like an hourly billing question and maybe trying to cut there, but if you can combine it, it really, really helps.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, why don't we take a couple questions from the audience?
Yes.
I think Meredith might have had one.
Thanks. I'm watching a pattern emerge as we step more into paid events with non-credit classes, right? And so there's this funny gray area. People are saying, oh, I can do that. I can sell the course. I can sell a group of courses. Then I sell other packages. There was a point several months ago when you stepped back from subscriptions and memberships, which is a way to sell those to companies. And I can see that use case re-emerging. And I'm curious just to learn a little more about what that context was and whether for again, watching a usage pattern in my sense, whether you are likely to step back into that at some point, or whether we should be building out something different on a record type for those kinds of players. Does that make any sense?
Are you referring to the storefront app that we had, or to something around like our payment schedules or some kind of like
It was
recurring payment?
Subscription, what we were talking about, I think, as we were thinking about moving towards storefront for courses. And what I'm seeing now is people are just using what they have available, which is paid events. But there is a function for that with regards to subscriptions or memberships for multiple events that is interesting. But I just wanted to learn more about how you were thinking about that.
I love your questions, but they're always difficult. So thank you.
Sorry about
I will
that.
try. So we did a survey about what our customers most wanted, and the outcome of one of them was to do text messaging. So that came to life, and then to have a store. And we asked, like, do you want a store? Do you have a store? Do you have Shopify? A lot of people said they wanted it. And a lot of people said that Salesforce Commerce Cloud was expensive. It didn't do this and that. The implementation was expensive. So we said, okay, maybe there's something there. And then we saw a lot of people morphing our events app to do course sales. We say, okay, maybe there's a use case there. So we built this storefront application that is sort of like a plug-and-play store that you like turn on. And we launched it, and we immediately saw a whole slew of requests of additional things that people wanted in order to just be able to go live. And then we saw a lot of what you're alluding to is, I don't know if it's confusion or like a lack of clarity as to where we would say what type of thing you would run in either one. So that started to get convoluted. And we had a lot of people that wanted storefront in events or events in storefront. And it would have set us down this other path of building where it started to get complicated, because there was another use case where people wanted a donation store where you can see a whole slew of different campaigns you wanted to donate to and add those to a store and be able to give a donation for that. And that would have set us down another path. And at the same time, we were getting a lot of requests to do an attendee mobile app. We thought, okay, so it's a question of, if you have a bunch of budget in front of you and where to direct a team, where do you point them, and what's most applicable to all of your customers? So we looked at this whole thing, and the Commerce Cloud and storefront thing was also causing some issues with the SIs and with Salesforce, because there was a bit of a mix there, because Salesforce doesn't have a competing product for events, but they have Commerce Cloud. So our whole purpose of this was to sell like a quicker win type of application to get in there and solve some of these use cases. But just like events, it very quickly becomes something that people want a lot more features too. So you can hear me kind of rattling off this where there isn't a very clear reason why we put it off, but there were too many reasons that were mounting that made it unclear to continue to invest the funds to be able to build it. Now, to do our attendee mobile app, that has applicability to all of our existing events customers. You might have one event a year or 50 events a year, as CK was saying. And that became the focus of what we ended up doing. So we still have that application on ice. We just decided, for the time of what we want to do right now, we're just going to go forward with our attendee mobile app. Now, before I see you want to say something here real quick, if you do want to do some kind of subscriptions, we have a feature that is part of our, every time you install events, it actually installs our payments app with it. Our payments app is what we started with as a company. It's actually an extremely rich set of functionality that sets us apart as an events company. We almost like started as a payments company. You can do payment schedules within the app that will, I wouldn't call it a full subscription suite, but if you want to charge somebody $500 a month, $40 a month, some amount per year, this thing will be able to do that. You can charge by member, non-member, some different kind of frequency, whatever you want. We currently don't have that built into our event checkout to kick off a schedule. We could. I don't know if anybody in the room knows this, but we actually built it custom long ago. You can do it post-processing to be able to do it. So after the registration comes in, you could have a ticket that outlines what the thing says, and from there you could have a flow or Apex that then kicks off our payment schedule. All the logic is built in declaratively. You can just set the field values to say like, process this frequency, boom, and it'll just start running transactions. It can generate receipts, it can show the invoices, it can like do this whole thing for you. All the logic is there. We just don't have a front end for the attendee for the event checkout. So if that is of interest, that is certainly something that we can evaluate doing. It wouldn't be a huge lift because all the logic is there. It's more of like a checkout UI exercise about how we want to expose that. But the functionality is in the org already at the domain layer.
And Meredith, if you want to talk to Valerie, she's looking into that right now and had been going through discovery. We also have Neil. They're not a university, but they a hair company. Neil Lane. No, not Neil Lane. That's Engagement Rings. I'll share with you afterwards, and we'll make sure that it's shared out to all of the attendees, where they have courses, and they just use event items, like Chris was saying, for either paying full or paying partial, and then on the back end, related to that invoice object, it's just creating those payment schedules for the recurring transactions for the full payment before the course starts. Yeah. And even with Storefront, we have 2 customers that had purchased Storefront that we had to pivot them back to events for application fees. And so they were able to rebuild it with our events application, and we changed a little bit of the look and feel and how they navigated from the application process to paying for the application in order to get into kind of that paid event recurring payment scenario. So had a lot of good bones.
Something we're adding into the builder is if you're familiar with the data dictionary and how you can relabel different fields in the checkout, and different, I'll just use words in the checkout. Right now, you had to do this like stare and compare to see where the labels are to override them with our data dictionary. Part of what Hollis was saying is in our builder roadmap, we're going to make that inline editable. So you can just, for that event, you can just override what the labels are, which will make it a heck of a lot easier if you want to morph our event checkout into something else.
Cool. Any other questions from folks in the audience? Okay. Let's see if there's any Chris missed on the report.
I think everybody's ready to hit the bar.
I would imagine so, and we're standing between it. So let's see. Request fee. I just have one here, Chris. It says feature request. RSS feed.
Did you know that one?
No.
There actually used to be a free app on the App Machine, so they just give you RSS feeds that I think someone took down. I remember it existing. I used it once, and it worked great. But we don't have any immediate plans to do an RSS feed at the moment. But if there's a lot of people that want it, let us know. It is just software, so we can evaluate and see what we put in.
Yeah, cool. And I think we got through all the other questions. So, unless there's any last-minute ones in the audience, take a second. All right. Thank you guys for your time.